Here's a bit jacked up. But you know what's not jacked up? Well, that is Captain America Lives. That's right, we just finished this bad boy. But before we end up doing that, why don't you go visit PBC? That's right, PBC. Who's that? That's Panel Bound Comics. They ended up being a rebrand, so they're formerly known as Organic Price Books. If you're wondering what happened and what that change was, follow a video that we ended up putting over there. I'll put it down in the description down below of explaining why we switched over to PBC. When you go visit PBC or panelboundcomics.com, use the discount code of FifthJack to save $2 off. Or if you have 4 or more books, you can use the code JACKITTOGETHER to save 5% off your entire order instead. Alright, enough about that. We're going to talk about the 3rd installment of Captain America by Ed Brubaker. This book had its low moments, but then it picked right up. And then we end up seeing stuff that ended up coming together. And as far as I can say that's as much spoil-free as I can end up going. Alright, so this is going to be Captain America Lives by Ed Brubaker, Alex Ross on the cover, Steve Epstein, Brian Hitch on art. This is going to be, I want to say, a standard cover. But that's the front. The spine, where you can see Captain America with his shield. And then the back. So what I like about these backs is that they go over and they actually show some of the covers that comes over with it. This is collecting Captain America 43 through 50, 600 and 601. Reborn 1 through 6, and Reborn Prologue. And like I said, this is from Ed Brubaker. I think this is an off-print book, but at the time, or when this book was printed, it was $75 cover cost. Alright, so there's going to be one end page. We'll take this off, and before we end up showing the second end page, well, not end page, but of the dust cover, the end sheets of the dust cover. So, like I said, this is the 3rd volume that comes over with it. There's this 3 of 5. There's 5 books that all together. So, on the book itself, there's the front, which is the cover. Spine. And back. I believe that's also the other cover that you could end up getting. So, before I go too far into this, we're going to end up giving a big spoiler warning before we dive right on in. We're going to have a voiceover of giving general thoughts of what's going to be going on with inside the book. And then we'll come back with you with what we review and what we think about the book itself. So, without further ado, spoiler warning, here we go. In sheets. So right off the rip, we end up getting exposed to what ended up having the history of Captain America. Then we see flashbacks that's coming from Bucky, and also a relationship between him and Black Widow. Oh, buddy. This relationship is going to be continued all throughout the entire book, where you end up seeing the difference of actually having that relationship being built and fostered. This is also where we get more exposure to the invaders, and then the character that was thought to be dead of the Human Torch. I guess not to be confused with the one from the Fantastic Four, but it was the one that was in the Civil War, or not Civil War, but in the Old War days, that teamed up with Bucky and Captain America and Namor the Submariner. We also deal with the fallout with Agent 13 of the entire scenarios that ended up happening in the previous book of her thought to be killing Captain America and her having the now known pregnancy and going through the loss of that said pregnancy. That's where we end up having Falcon being the good friend, being standing by, trying to support her as much as he can. And he also ends up being a character that ends up helping him because he ended up legalizing himself to be able to be out there. Because this was also during the Civil War times where you ended up having unregistered superheroes that can end up doing it. Back to Bucky for a hot second. We end up seeing him going back and forth a little bit more of being Captain America, but also going back to being the Winter Soldier, because the rep of the Winter Soldier is stellar. Meanwhile, the We can't forget the villain side where we have the Red Skull continuing his game plan for the pursuit of the ultimate body. We end up finding out what the ultimate body is. What is that ultimate body? Well, it's Captain America, because really, we find out that Captain America isn't gone. He's just in another plane that goes over with that the gun wasn't a gun, it was transporting him over into that place. Then we end up having the fight between Red Skull and Captain America for who ends up taking over the body. And then ultimately, he ends up being the Red Skull, where the Red Skull gets back over into the body of that Dr. Zola ended up giving him. All this and many more can be found into this volume, such as Sin, Crossbones, and all the other shenanigans. So, this book right here is, like I said, the third installment out of 5. So, we're over halfway through what we ended up having for the reading for this. And I have to say, out of them all, this was the little lack of luster one so far. There's a bunch of action that goes over with it, and you do have Bucky trying to find his way through what we ended up having going on with it. And we get the surprise of Cap and how we end up actually getting, well, I guess I shouldn't say Cap, Steve Rogers back into the entire Marvel Universe. Overall, I would give this a 4 out of 5. It's teeter on a 3.5 to a 4, though, what that goes on with it. But if I had to go a nice round number, so it would be a 4. Still good progression. Still end up having some solid ways that we end up bringing over and having more added to the story. If you like us going over through our reviews, haul videos, heck, even single issues, this would be the place. If you're liking that kind of stuff, hit the little subscribe button, hit that little bell to be notified whenever you come or whenever we come out with new content. Thank you for watching. And as always, till next time, we'll see you later.